wanted to go ahead and make sure I
And of course, what I submitted
just
this is never going to happen
I haven't
in
watched
America.
a
And then
few
I'll take
of
the
Billy
Constitution
Corgan's
test. So whether I
interviews.
was being propagandized in the positive, I was being
And
informed
same
that
thing.
America is not like this. To actually see in my lifetime America go from the world that I believed in then to the world I see now is literally mind blowing. And to be participating not only as a at the citizen level, in the local community level, I have a business where I live outside of Chicago, and so I deal with the local government and
Let's go
that
ahead
type
and
of stuff.
pull up some of
But
these
then
while
also
we
be
look
a
through.
public person and be part of the zeitgeist at different times to be used and abused positively and negatively within the systems that exist today, and see how my participation um, is a constant decision making between either am I helping, am I hurting, am I informing, or
Good.
am I actually enslaving. Um, that's a difficult thing to take on. Yeah, so to learn that what the collectivist vision in Animal Farm in 1984 was actually our future and not this preventative thing kind of blows my mind. I can't believe we're even having this discussion, if you can understand why I say that to you humbly. To be talking in America about, in 2016, about you know Mao's a good idea, and
These are pretty cool. These are from Great
a
North.
socialist is running for president, and that's okay. And we're going to go back to these kind of crazy tax rates where we're going to completely disempower the innovators in our country because the new
Pretty
class,
good. Look at
the
all
new
those
technocratic class
orbs and
wants to
stuff
keep their
from the
position,
fire
and they want to keep
spinners.
anybody else from coming in the game. I mean, that's just crazy to me. So
Yeah, how do you think people can get around the millions of people that were murdered under these communist regimes and just say, well, that just happened then?
but
And
here's the thing. Obviously, I listen to you, and I listen to Alex, I listen to David Knight and Jakari. I mean, you guys do a fine job of identifying the factual root, and of course, sometimes because you don't have all the information, you have to speculate. And as I once told Alex, literally sitting in this exact spot, you don't always have to be right. You just have to have the right intention to want to get to the truth. As long as you want to get to the truth and that's your intention, that's fine. But what I would say to you, and I say this very plainly to you, is that most people don't care about facts. Most people do not care about facts. I work in the entertainment business.
Thank you there.
People in the entertainment business do not care about facts. They only care about facts when it involves a gross. We spent this much. How much do we make? How much do we lose? Up until that point, it's all in their mind. So for most Americans or most people listening internationally, it is in your mind. It is literally, you are fighting
Here's some
planets
planets.
that do not exist. Now, if you're intelligent, which I think most people that listen to this show are, you don't see how you've been engineered and steered.
Well, that one.
People are heavily invested in convincing you of something. We all know the advertising model. Women very much understand from a very young age. You start being told you got to look like this, you got to think like this, you got to do this in your hair, blah blah blah. Young men, it comes a little bit later, and it usually comes through sports, which is why it's so heavily invested in sports. The beard, the culture, the bro, the blah 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 blah. Okay, we all understand that, and we don't. It doesn't really bother us. We like when a clever ad manipulates us to want us to buy a certain product or something. What we don't realize is think about people who have trillions on the line getting you to believe a lie.
Oh, these ones are pretty.
This is a moon. Way so that they can achieve some end that's 10 years down the road that you don't even have the read for. So imagine here's somebody like Alex coming, and he actually has the read. Or he's talking to other people who have the read, and they can see 10 years down the road. You sit here in this spot, and you present those facts to people, and they go, what does that have to do with me? So to me, the next stage in the info war is to get at the ground level, at the cultural level, which is where most people interface with the propagandizing and the manipulation, and help them understand. Because I think most people's natural human instinct, when they realize they're being manipulated, is to get mad. Because ultimately it's an insult to their intelligence.
Right, or to deny, because they don't want to admit that they've been hacked.
Or disenfranchise their sovereign right to make an independent decision based on fact.
See, I've seen this one a few different times.
Most people don't care, like I said, if they're being manipulated into buying a product. If they realize that they're ultimately enslaving themselves to a system that's not only going to hurt them, but it's going to hurt their children, that's when their instinct kicks in.
These are kind of blurry.
And that's when fact doesn't matter, right? So you can present people fact all day. If they are hypnotized, they are not going to hear you.
They're conditioning your children. And so you'll see some of these Disney cartoons and things like that. We spoke about Shutterbug Time where it's this bug that's a drone that's spying on kids, and it's just conditioning them to be completely okay with constant surveillance, reporting back to central command about whatever it is that you're doing
I
inside
don't
the
know what
privacy of
these
your
are.
own
So let's
home.
explore that for a second. Now I'm on the entertainment side. I'm in these meetings with people. I recently had a meeting with a big studio that I might participate in. Those people at the ground level are not part of some governmental cabal.
Right.
They might even themselves
Oh yes,
be okay
I got this
with those
before.
ideas.
This
So,
part here,
on the realm of opinion,
moon halo.
somebody working in a big studio
Like
could
within
say,
just a few shots, total
yeah,
different.
I've been friends with the creator of that show for 20 years. It's got nothing to do with government surveillance. Okay? And you could say, well, I disagree. So an observer would sit back and say, well, Leanne has an opinion, and this person over here who's invested in the series and put capital, and they believe in it, and they love it, and they think it's great for children or whatever. You present it as, have you thought of it like this? My perspective is, this is something that kind of, if I was a parent or thinking of my own nieces and nephews, this kind of troubles me, and here's why. So all you're doing
Boring
is
photos.
presenting kind
Sorry.
of a range of ideas to someone and letting them make the choice whether or not that's something they want their children participating in, because maybe on their particular range of belief, they don't want their children conditioned to believe that surveillance is okay. Because
this is
even
what
if you
I
can
swear
make an
the,
argument for surveillance is okay, a lot of
the
us
stars
that grew
were
up
moving.
in the 60s and 70s, we were told don't
Not
trust
in the
strangers.
regular order that they move in, but they
Because,
totally
there
shifted.
was a rash of
But-
pedophile incident. I grew up around when John Wayne Gacy was killing kids. I mean, I literally lived down the road
Oh,
from where
behind
that happened.
Colby. So there's the
You
Big
can imagine
Dipper.
being 10 years old and hearing about kids being murdered in quick basements. I mean,
Pegasus.
It terrified us. So
Here.
suddenly all the parents were like, don't trust strangers. So something as simple as that, which maybe has no nefarious undertone, still at some point a parent might say, well, I don't necessarily want my kid watching that because I don't want them to trust authority blindly. I want them to use their own minds. So I'd rather have a show that's more like it's teaching them how to think for themselves and problem solve than I want a show that's telling them it's okay to be observed by a stranger. And that's not to assign a nefarious intent to the creator, and it's not to say you have to be right. You can just raise the question, and it's really more about the cultural discussion of whether it's appropriate in the wider culture to accept these ideas as normalized, which is where I get funky on that.
Right.
I don't like the normalization of things that really need heavy, intense peer and cultural review before we kind of stamp and say, that's okay. Drones, for example, is something, particularly as a person in public life, and I would guess you as a young woman, that's a troubling thing. If you have to think every time you're near an open window and you're taking off or putting on your clothes, or you're picking your nose or something, you have to think, is somebody watching me, and is this going to end up on a system, and is that 10 seconds going to haunt me for the rest of my life, particularly in social media world where I can be tagged. And basically, you work here, you're a public person. So those are issues you have to think through. So why isn't there a greater cultural peer review about the proper use of drones in situations? Why isn't there a more wide-ranging discussion? That to me is a discussion we should have as citizens.
Right. Well, I know, for instance, when I switched over my phone to an Android, not even thinking about it, I didn't realize that you had to turn off all of these systems. And at one point, I just randomly discovered that my phone had been tracking my most visited places. And hey, isn't this great? Don't you want everyone to know where you work, where you live, where you shop? No, I don't want any. I mean, that's.
Oh yeah, my phone's starting to do that too.
I
Like
some social media thing to my phone, and as you can imagine, I have a lot of famous people in my phone. And that social media system went in my phone because I downloaded the app and poached all the names and had posted them on the internet. And I remember talking to somebody from the company, and they were like, well, those are private. In the hacking world?
No, exactly.
Hello?
Yeah, it's not private to people who have broken into the government office there in the Pentagon and have exposed your
These
private
are things that we should discuss. So I like the idea, and I'm pushing for, and I think you're the perfect person to approach this from that systemic review, from the standpoint of the info war. Are we okay? Here's a new show. Are we comfortable with these concepts? Here's a movie where the director of the movie has openly called for open borders. Are we okay with that? Are we okay with the messaging in the movie? Is that okay? Do we want to participate that on a cultural level? And I'm not calling for boycotts. I'm an artist. I'm calling for an open, free society that deals with these ideas equally and fairly.
This stuff is new here.
The right use of the word,
I like to think of them as gamma ray bursts, maybe.
I mean, it's pretty remarkable that, like, literally, okay, I'm talking to you, right? I could say one word right now that would destroy my career. I could use the wrong racial epithet, or say the wrong thing to you, or look down at the wrong part of your body and be castigated, and it's a meme, and I'm a horrible person. Every day, through the media, through advertising, we see
get some
people
UFOs on
being
this one.
degraded. We see people doing all sorts of things that we should be horrified as a culture. So we've normalized all sorts of things. But now we live in a world where one word can destroy your life,
Right.
but it's okay
Probably
to,
bug.
if you're a social justice warrior, spit in somebody's face.
Right.
That's okay, because you've been you're a victim, so it's okay.
Right.
So under the same ideology, I didn't like the way you spoke to me earlier, so I should be able to denigrate you because that's.
Oh, what was
I
that?
mean, that's where we're losing the plot, and quickly too. I would add.
Right. Well, and that's something that is kind of a big issue right now. Is it's this whole cultural, racial thing.
Oh wait, I do
where,
remember this one. I did get a UFO.
You can't say anything if you're white. There was actually the white privilege conference that just took place.
Sorry
the
for
17th
swearing.
annual one. Who knew? But
I was getting
Gotta
creeped
give you
out
an invitation.
by
No, I
crap
know.
falling from the sky.
so, but there was a woman who had attended, and she was tweeting out how the white speaker took too long, and that's like
I actually did read that.
perfect example of white privilege. He
And I
went
actually-
over his time.
And here's that's a perfect example. Okay, I'm the type of person. I saw that report. I was fascinated by it. I actually went to the woman's Twitter account and I read a bunch of her tweets because as somebody in public life, I know not to just take your word for it. I wanted to see for myself what is the messaging, what is the perspective. Maybe she said one dumb thing and she said 10 things that were really wise. I want to learn. So if you can bring that into a wider frame, I think that's very, very helpful to people to encourage investigation and not just take it. Because at the end of the day, if this is propaganda one and they say
So
you're
what
just
if I
propaganda
can
two,
see this
then it's
because
always
there's
going to be an argument who's got
such a
the moral
massive
high ground.
corona
Right,
hole.
and we definitely
Corona.
see that in the comment section.
Corona.
That people are like, oh, well, this is that, and this, you know.
Leanne, you're a
Yeah.
privileged white woman. You have no right to say that. So by engaging in the wider topic of free speech, libertarianism, supporting values which you don't agree with, but at the same time sort of calling it for what it is. You can engage without having to shut it down.
Right now, we have like a
How all these fucking things
movement
are
in the youth.
glistening
These
on.
people truly feel this is their
Sorry, I
civil
swear.
rights movement of their time.
Burns
They
my
feel like
britches.
they're on the right, and so if you, for instance, if it's a Trump anti-Trump rally, they think that people on the Trump side are just racist, homophobic, xenophobic. Shut it down. I don't want to hear anything you say because I'm on the right side of history here, and I don't even need to hear your facts. And so, how do you kind of educate these people that possibly their ideas aren't authentically individual?
My argument is you can't. They're too far gone. And that may sound pessimistic because I know that you want a solution-based concept. I think when somebody reaches the point where they literally cannot see a human being on the other side of the argument, and I'm not even talking about religion, okay? I'm talking about humanism. The law, as it's constructed
there
in
was
Western
one.
civilization, is based on the idea
There's a couple
that
on that one.
a human has a sort of sovereign right
Same
to
right
exist.
there. Can't slow it down on this one.
And of course, people argue about when that life begins. That's a different subject. But the point is this
Right
sovereign
there.
right has a vote. They have a life, and they have a right to live.
There
in
goes
this
one
earth,
up
and they
there.
obviously have a different life in America. So when somebody has reached the point where they literally do not
Oh, it
see
looks
that
like somebody's,
person
like, sitting
as a
right there.
voice, a vote, and they have a story, and they have a family. Look, I've said it before. I grew up around a lot of racists in my family. Would I call them bad people? No. Would I call them misinformed? Yeah. Was that due to experience? Do they have a right to their belief? They would argue that they had a right to their belief because something happened in 1984 and they had some guy from a different race say something and they were never going to listen to that race again and anything to do. Okay, that's racist as I would define it.
Oh, jeez. I know I'm getting a lot of slack, but do the best I can. I have no energy. I can't do anything, apparently, besides just want to sleep. That's not like me. It's like, wake up, Amanda. But, alright, maybe I'll post this one, maybe I won't. I just wanted to get out, Billy Corgan's message, which I totally agree with. It's very well said. Everything's not black and white.